All right.
All right,
How
what's
you
up,
been, man?
guys? Yeah, I've been pretty good. Welcome back, everybody, to the world's most consistent podcast.
Yeah. We've actually been making a bunch of episodes. We just haven't released them.
Yeah,
So it actually really is a very consistent podcast. You just don't hear it.
yeah.
And that's actually a lie. That's not true at all. But anyway, yeah. So what have you been up to, man? I mean, we haven't even, I mean, we talked, but not really about the kind of stuff that we talk about on this podcast. So what
Yeah,
have you been
yeah.
up to in terms of this stuff?
Um, Mostly just working on coding and stuff like that. Working on
Mm,
incremental video. That's been probably my main thing for the last couple months, and that's like getting
mm.
close to being usable. Uh, so yeah, that's about it. How about you?
Yeah. So just before I answer that, I just want to ask a couple questions. Like, is there a user interface for that? Because I know you were doing it from the command line for a while.
Mm.
So is there an interface for it now? How's it coming along?
Yeah. There's like a basic interface. I mean, you're kind of limited with what you can do with the program that I'm using. Is called MPV. It's a very good
Mm,
like audio
mm,
and video player, right? But
mm,
you don't have the same uh, functionality, like options available to you that you'd have making like something in a website or something like that. Then you can make the all the HTML and around the player and everything look nice. You can add lots of buttons and stuff with the
mm,
MPV thing because it's just kind of a command line program. It's like a little bit more difficult, I guess, but yeah,
mm.
it's coming along, and there is like a primitive UI to make it more usable just by normal humans, I guess.
Yeah, people are not on Linux.
Right.
So I guess the benefit of using MPV instead of like rolling your own thing
Mm.
is that it essentially can take any media source and takes care of the localization, and then it can just play that, right? Is that right?
MPV can basically play anything. Yeah, it can even play like YouTube without ads. It can play lots of different streaming sites without ads, live streams, even if you really wanted to. All kinds of
Right.
video formats, local or remote. So it's kind of like a video media player sort of Swiss Army knife. It just deals with anything, and it has very good support for writing scripts. So that's what I was mostly
Right.
interested in it for. But yeah.
So it uses, is it YouTube DL for the actual downloading of the videos?
Um, yeah. So you don't have to like download it before you play it. You can just literally stream it as if you were watching it on YouTube. I don't think it's
Oh, right.
like
Okay.
as smooth, but it's like 90% of the way there. And obviously, you don't have ads or anything like that. You also have all of the abilities that the scripts give you. So it is like a nicer experience overall, I'd say. And yeah, you can download things if you want with YouTube DL, which is pretty cool. But
But
yeah.
at some point, it does need to download it, right? Because when you do like a close, an audio close, for example,
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
blanking out a word. So what are you actually doing there? Are you downloading the full audio and
No.
then,
It's like you
okay.
can just download the part of the stream that is uh like you wouldn't have to download the whole video. If it was like every time you wanted to make a close, you'd have to download the whole video. That would take way too long. So it literally just
Right, yeah.
chops out a little section. But yeah, I don't want to go in too much into the details. Just because, but maybe there's some people out there who don't even know like what it's about. I'm like gonna do a video this week that shows all of the functionality and all of the different uses that I've found for it so far. So we've mentioned like audio closes. I found that to be very useful for like learning foreign languages. But I've also
Mm,
added some additional kind of card types that make
mm,
learning from audio viable in other domains as well. Or at least I argue that basically because for example, yeah, it's very difficult to explain just like this. I will show it in the video, but I think it can let you basically learn from like a podcast on history or whatever,
mm,
like
mm,
or like a lecture on computer science,
mm.
and basically by extracting both video, GIFs, maybe images. I can't remember if I said audio, but yeah, audio as well, obviously, subtitles.
Right.
All of that information can be turned into flashcards and then reviewed actively.
Mm,
And yeah, there are even some like really wacky applications for it, like learning a musical instrument. So I was like keeping,
Yeah, I saw that in one of your Patreon videos. You were playing
yeah,
guitar.
yeah. I think that could be like a really interesting use, but yeah, I'll create the video and you can check it out. And I'd be interested to know if people have like any other things they want to be added in before there's like a beta, so I can just knock it out really quickly. Um,
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, one of the reasons I was asking about it is because like incremental video is a really nice idea in terms of like the way that Woz has implemented it and talked about it
mm,
in Super Memo. But there's all kinds of limitations, and we touched on a few of them. Like getting a local video to work on there is, I don't know, it requires some kind of scientific degree. I don't know how to even do it.
yeah,
And also, you can't use any streaming site other than YouTube, to my knowledge.
yeah.
And there's all kind. Every time I open a video, there's errors. I don't know why that is, but a bunch of errors pop up every time I use the collection of the videos.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
I know
I don't know
exactly what
why
you're
that
talking about.
is. And then somehow making an extract, I don't know, it never works exactly how you'd anticipate it would work. And again, it's very hard to work within the constraints that Woz was placed in terms of dealing with the YouTube API and so forth. So it's not like a lot of it was his fault. But again, if you put more care into this particular subset of features relating to video and audio, there's a lot more that could be done. And this kind of active recall of bits of video or bits of audio is a crucial point. And
Mm.
something that always confused me, if you look at the incremental video docs, Woz seems to indicate that you could learn a bunch and retain the memories. I have to sneeze, so I'm gonna try to get through the sentence.
Okay.
But you could retain the memories for a long time, even just by watching it over again, which seemed totally antithetical to the ideas of active recall and the testing effect and the generation effect,
Mm.
all that stuff. It seemed antithetical to that. And I don't know how it could be that mere review or it's essentially like rereading, rewatching, whatever, re-listening, however you want to look at it. It's the same thing as that. And everybody knows who's tried that. It doesn't seem to work over a very long time period. So you need something beyond that, except the way that you can take notes in a incremental video collection is also limited because it's not merged with your other collection. And so if you want to process those notes and turn those notes into items, now you have to transfer that from your incremental video collection to your incremental reading collection because integrating them would be cumbersome. So anyway, the main point is there's all kinds of easy wins and not so easy wins that could be built into the incremental video system. And I think the way that you're doing it is really good because video is a huge resource. I mean, reading
Mm.
is obviously very good, but when you're talking about in the context of lectures or interviews or demonstrations, things like this, they tend to capture a kind of enthusiasm or joyfulness or particularities or idiosyncrasies of the people talking about it, or you capture the culture of the thing a little bit better, or just it's more fun in some cases. It's better for when you're doing something else. Maybe you could do it while you're eating.
Yeah.
These kinds of things. There's all kinds of scenarios where it is more useful and more applicable for certain contexts. And so I think it's great that there's actually going to be a toolkit that will allow us to handle this kind of thing. And it's such a big problem that I've even thought about building it myself. But I like to build web tools, and there's a lot of limitations with web tools in terms of like you would have to download the file onto the servers, and
Yeah.
anyway, it's all kinds of nonsense. So
Yeah, exactly. There's like a whole set of trade-offs. If you decide to go the offline route, then you can't have a nice GUI and have like you can't create like a web service and then have users sign up and all of that stuff. Uh
right,
um but yeah, and then if you decide to create it on the web, it makes it more difficult to use like YouTube DL. Yeah, you might have to try and go through the normal YouTube API, which kind of sucks. Honestly, it
mm,
doesn't let you do a whole lot of stuff. It doesn't let you
right,
like download video or anything like that. So yeah, there's a
right,
whole lot of
right.
limitations. And oh yeah, I wanted to talk about like the the really interesting things I've realized about learning from video and audio. One
Mm,
of them is that I think that passive review of video and audio might be more effective than passive review of just plain text. Like it's something to do with maybe if you think about it in terms of like information, it's a lot higher in terms of dimensionality. There are a lot more
Right.
features of audio and video that are being contained within that information. And I think something
Right.
about that makes it a lot easier to remember. Uh, like so lots of the language learning communities, the types of cards they use, they're actually very passive, or the ones that they recommend
Mm.
nowadays. I'm talking about the people who do immersion learning, the mass immersion approach, Refold,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
Megaku or whatever for learning Japanese and stuff. What they
Mm.
recommend are these like sentence cards where the front of the card is like a subtitle extracted from a video plus the audio. So it's very passive because you can read the text. Nothing's closed or anything like that. And the audio is just what's the text of the subtitle, right?
Mm.
And then the answer will just be maybe one of the words, maybe one definition of one of the words in that sentence, maybe that was difficult for you or something. So it's quite passive compared to like closing a word inside a foreign language sentence or something like that.
Right.
But they seem to be very effective. I really do think it's something to do with just sound and video sticking in your mind more easily than text.
Yeah, it certainly has a lot more texture to it. Like in some way this is intuitive, that because it's someone speaking it. When you read words, there's no, theoretically you could imagine that a computer wrote it, right? There's no other texture to it other than
Yeah.
what's written, right?
Yeah.
And obviously great writers can convey some emotionality to it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in terms of what's there without you having to put anything on it mentally, it's only the words. Whereas audio or something, like, have you ever seen the show Lost?
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember that Scottish guy when he says that phrase, "See you in another life, brother"?
Oh wait, no. Oh, sorry. I mean, I've heard of Lost. I haven't actually seen it. Sorry.
Okay, well, it's harder to explain, but at some point there's a Scottish guy and he says this phrase, and I can't really do a Scottish accent, but it's something like "See you in another life, brother." He says it like that, right?
That's pretty
And
good.
so because he said it that way, I've never forgotten that phrase. I
Yeah.
think of it like somewhat often.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think of it if he didn't have that accent. There's something about his voice that's in it that sticks in my mind, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I noticed as well. Like one of the things I've been doing a lot recently is listening to audiobooks in Chinese. So I found this audiobook which I really love. It's like it's the example I've done in those videos that I've just been sending in like group chats just to show like teasers of the incremental video players. It's this book called The Three Body Problem. And what I really like about it is this particular audiobook is that the guy who's reading it, he does like these really exaggerated voices, right? So it kind of it really pulls you in to the story. Like it's so good when he even does like the woman's voices in this sort of falsetto thing. And yeah, it just I noticed that I was able to extend the initial interval. I actually deliberately added something to SMA recently so that you could set the initial interval. That there wasn't an option for that before, but it was entirely motivated by these audio closes that I was creating. I was finding them way too easy when they were presented to me after like 5 or 10 days or whatever, the first showing. I felt like it should be more like 30 or 40, honestly, because it's actually really interesting. Something about the way your brain works. It's almost as if it's trying to fill in the sounds that are coming later in the sentence before you actually hear it, if you know what I mean. So I'd noticed that it's like one of the things that made initially making these audio closes, where I should basically explain what I'm doing. It's like just like a close on a text sentence when you close over a word with that sort of highlighter, and then it creates a question for you where there's a missing word and you have to give that word as the answer, right? Well, the audio close is similar in that you're closing over a portion of the audio and that portion of audio is replaced with a beep. So it's almost like when someone wants to censor audio that's got swearing in it. It's just like that, but you can use that
Right.
beep for other words, obviously, right? So one of the
Right,
things
right.
I noticed is like I wouldn't even hear the beep, even though I'd added a beep in. It's like I didn't hear it in the sentence when I
Oh
play it back.
wow.
It's like your brain just fills it in. So
Right.
that seems to happen when you listen to it, like when it's really fresh in your mind, and then when you space
Right.
it out further, you hear the beep more clearly.
Right.
I don't have any science to, to back this up,
No,
and I've only
that
been
makes
doing it for
sense.
like a couple of months, but that's definitely something I noticed quite strongly.
There's a similar phenomenon of if a word is written on the screen and then the narrator of a video says a word that sounds like that, but
Mm.
it's sort of slightly different,
Yeah,
you'll hear them saying the word that's written
yeah,
because you're expecting them to say the word that's written. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Even though they said a slightly different word, you're forming it in your mind to the word that's written because that's what you're anticipating,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly.
I don't know the name for that phenomenon, but that I think that's a documented thing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know.
Like
There's
that Laurel and Yanny. You remember that?
yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was really weird because they seem like such
Man, what an
different
odd
sounds.
thing. Exactly. Exactly. I still have trouble comprehending how it could be. Those are separate words.
Yeah.
Like as I'm saying it now, Laurel and Yanny, they barely share any sound.
Yeah, yeah.
I, uh,
Actually, it is really weird. Like, so in the process of creating these audio closes, you need to, I basically create the start of the close and then create the end of the close, and then it starts looping over that portion, and then you adjust it to try and get it perfect. So it's just covering the words
right.
that
Yeah.
you want to cover. But it's really interesting. Sometimes the sounds, like the sounds don't sound, it doesn't sound the same as it does inside the whole sentence as it does when you've just
Mm,
isolated the thing. When
mm,
you like, when you ask someone how to say a word, actually Alexi was asking
mm,
me today, like, how do you pronounce the word what? You know, just very simple
mm,
word, right? Right?
mm.
What? But the pronunciation changes. You don't pronounce the T often, or at least I don't, when it's
Right.
part of a sentence, because saying what and then another word is very inconvenient. If
Right.
you pronounce the T sound, and really emphasize the T sound, it makes it difficult to pronounce another word after it. So
Exactly.
often,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like the way sounds, a word can sound very differently, just depending on where it comes in the sentence or how the
Oh,
person is speaking
absolutely.
and so on. So there must be some sort of like, yeah, there must be a lot of prediction going on based on the context about what could possibly come next. So that's why I think
Mm.
these audio closes could be really useful, because you're training yourself to um, do what sort of neural networks do. They do like pattern completion based on incomplete input. So you get this input where there's a missing chunk of the sound. Now you have to complete the pattern, just like you do for any other close, I guess. But yeah.
But don't you think that that pattern completion is not the same as recalling it? So if the goal of the item is to produce a durable memory,
Mm,
and what you're actually practicing at every review is some kind of pattern recognition,
mm,
because there's only a certain subset of words that would make sense given the context of the sentence, right?
yeah.
Like even the tonality of it, all kinds of things like this.
Yeah.
So isn't that a practice of pattern recognition more so than recall?
Yeah, yeah. I guess for it depends. I guess it depends on um how you formulate the flashcard. So the pattern recognition thing, I think that's acceptable in a language learning context, because
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
a lot of
probably encouraged,
languages,
I would imagine.
yeah, a lot of languages just pattern completion and understanding what sounds make sense in different contexts. So I think that's
Right. Yeah.
okay. And then in terms of like different subjects, math, science, blah blah blah, history. Um, I'm not sure. Like I mentioned earlier, there are different card formats that you can use other than uh, the close, because the close it's really dependent on the structure of sentence, if you know what I mean. So with text,
Mm,
it's like
mm,
sometimes you get a sentence that's presented to you in an article that is very easy to close. You don't even have to change anything in the sentence. But if you do need to change anything, it's really easy with text. You can just delete a few words, reformulate it in your own words, and so on. You can't really do that with
mm.
audio. So one of the things I added was it's going to be kind of difficult to explain just like this. So let me know if it doesn't make sense. But
Mm,
um, what I call it like a closed context card. So the front of the card is actually a typed question.
mm,
So it's actual text. And then the answer would be uh, a word or phrase, and then the a word or phrase in terms of the sound. So it'd be a word or phrase
mm.
sound component, and then also the context, like the rest of the sentence where that word or phrase came from. So it's almost like the extra context in parentheses that you'd add after the answer in a close, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
So that gives you more freedom in terms of like the range of stuff that you can range of questions that you can ask from audio content, because you don't have as much flexibility in terms of what you can't just delete words or anything like that. So
Mm.
the easiest way to do it is to formulate a question in text and then have the answer be audio, and then also
Right.
have like the context as well, which is nice to have.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I've noticed a few things and they're sort of in tension with each other. One of them is when I review a normal item, I often just incidentally recall when I learned that, like the context in which I learned it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this where you'll review an item and you'll, without trying to, you'll just think of the initial learning experience?
Mm.
Have you had that?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so that's one piece of it. And another piece of it is I've always wanted the review process to feel more new, like more enjoyable in the sense of real learning. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
As if it's grounded in real learning instead of this repeated process where I just hit a couple of numbers and enter and grade my like it's it's almost robotic. Even if your items are very good,
Mm.
you need like a lot of extra stuff around them to make sure they all fit in context and that the actual review process is somewhat enjoyable, all this. So I just want it all to blend together. And I've even tried things like taking a snapshot of a video or a person that I learned something from and then
Mm.
putting it on the answer side of the thing or sometimes even the question side just so that I can be grounded in that place where I learned it, you know? So
Yeah.
I think this kind of audio of the person saying it where you learned it, that's probably pretty useful. Although I still get the sense that for basic things like, let's say, a year that something happened,
Mm.
I sort of get the sense that having that typed out is almost always going to be better than having an audio close of it. What is your intuition about that? And by the way, just real quick, just for people listening, James has to go in a minute, so I don't want to extend it too far. And James, if you have to go, just let me know and we can stop whenever.
Yeah, sure. I've got like uh five or so more minutes.
Okay. Okay.
So um you were saying it's better to have it as text if it's like a year?
Yeah, if it's something really basic like that,
Yeah.
if the individuality of that person's articulation has no bearing on the value. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I just don't know how much benefit there is from the audio. Like, if it's like something so simple like a year, would you get as much benefit um, than if it's like them talking about something in a sentence where they're, uh, I don't know, using lots of expressive language and
Right.
getting
Yeah.
you really pumped up or something. I don't know.
Right. Right.
I think I just
Right.
need to do more tests with it. Uh, Yeah, and there are also like the cost of making these sound items would probably be higher as well in terms of how much time it takes. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's still more time than text. Text is just too easy
Right.
to make closes from, you
Right.
know? So,
Right.
um, yeah, the hope is that even though the cost is higher in terms of creating the card, hopefully the kinds of cards you're creating will make them more valuable, or they stick in your memory more, so you don't have to repeat them as much, or they have some other
Mm,
benefit that makes up for that cost.
mm,
So it might be the case that, yeah, for like just very simple things like dates, um, or like just kind of like drier information where
mm,
there isn't that much, I don't know, there isn't that much to hook you in the sentence. I guess maybe it's just
mm.
better to do text, but yeah, we should do some experiments and find out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of declarative knowledge that is still quite useful to have in some audio form. Like, I have a lot of Feynman quotes
Mm,
that just roll around in my brain. Like, he'll say something like, an atom to an apple is like an apple to the earth, right? And
mm,
so if my review process of that quote, obviously it's not a tough thing to remember. I don't even have an item for it. I've remembered it for years. But if the review process for that was that I heard him say that,
mm.
like I tried to recall it and then I heard him say that, that would be a much, just as a visceral experience, it would be much different than reading the words out, even
Yeah,
if it had his name with it. Because I'm hearing this man say it, and he had quite a distinctive accent and just mannerism and level of excitement about what he was teaching, all these
yeah,
kinds of things.
yeah. W-
And so there's all kinds of things like that. And I've experienced this with a great many lecturers, even like Patrick Winston over at MIT. Unfortunately, he's gone now, but um, he has a distinctive style of speaking, or Richard Hamming, these kinds of people. You can feel them, you can feel their spirit and their energy and excitement for the idea, for the thing they're lecturing about when they're speaking. So
Yeah,
there's something in that that gets lost, especially over time if you just read the words, and
yeah.
especially if you've rephrased it in your own words to make the item a little bit more terse or whatever it is.
Mm.
So there's all sorts of human elements that get lost along the way.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like back before there was writing systems and
Mm,
stuff, like a lot of human history was just transferred from generation to generation orally, right? You have the oral history
right, right.
tradition and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe we're finely attuned to remembering sound and stuff. I don't know,
Mm,
but yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's so much nicer. It makes it more real. It's like real life,
yeah,
especially for
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like people when they have a distinctive voice, and when it's something historical, like I could imagine like listening to like a Winston Churchill speech or something like that, like
Mm,
renowned for his like kind of speech patterns and stuff, and like his
mm,
speeches, and it's much
mm,
nicer to have that in like audio format and being able to hear it, and having like a picture as well, and being able to see him open that podium as well. It's just more
mm,
lifelike, and
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, certainly I agree with that. And in that particular example, I watched that movie The Darkest Hour,
yeah, yeah.
about Churchill, and I wept. I wept
Yeah,
multiple times during that movie. Jesus, man. Oh,
I've
anyway.
not seen it, but I remember someone talking about it. There's something like Winston Churchill. He's like walking around the town or something. He's asking people like, "Are you going to
Yes,
give up or
yes.
something?" And they're like, "No, we're never
Yeah.
going to give up." It's like these kids or something like that.
Exactly,
I was like,
exactly,
"Oh man,
dude.
that is making me tear up," and I've not even seen the movie.
Yeah, dude, you gotta watch that movie. The actor, I think it's Gary something, Gary, I don't know his name. Something Gary, I think. And he's amazing at it. I don't know how he captured him so well, but
Mm,
it's as if he's really Churchill. At least
damn.
in my conception mentally of him. And the speeches are so motivational, and it's such an emotional film, and just a triumphant movie. I highly recommend that. Not that it's related, but just to say, just to sum it up, because I know you have to go. I do think there's a lot of value in like audio or video based learning that gets lost when you try to convert everything just to pure text for efficiency's sake or whatever it is. So I'm excited that you're working on that, and I'm excited to see some updates when you post those.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'll try and get our video out soon, and really excited for people to finally try it. It's like it's taking me so fucking long to actually finish it.
That's the programmer's way, baby. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, sorry, this is a shorter one today. Um,
no, it was good.
yeah, it was fun. I'm really happy to get to do these again. I've missed them actually, doing these pods.
Yeah, me too, dude.
They're a ton of fun.
Absolutely.
Um,
All right.
Oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to say is like if you want to come on the pod and do and like discuss something with us, we'd be very grateful to have you on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you've got
Even if you
something
don't know
interesting.
anything,
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
we'll find a way.
Even if you're a
It'll be okay.
fool.
Yeah, even if you're literally a moron and you don't know how to even comprehend anything,
Yeah,
we're fine with it. We're
yeah,
inclusive here.
we are. Yeah, I don't know. It's like especially anything to do with like I don't know, the future of incremental reading and spatial repetition systems. That's been on my mind recently. If you've got some thoughts about, what would make, I don't know, if you just got some strong opinions about incremental reading software, space repetition, learning in general, I'd love to have like a discussion on this podcast with you. It'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great.
All right, guys. So I've got to run, unfortunately, but yeah, thank you, Xander. This was a pleasure,
Mhm.
as always.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye.